Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Wednesday, the 4th of December. Mr. Brown, nice and early. 1 second, inviting co-host. As you know by now, this is the morning blast. Let's wait for Mr. Brown to come on board because he won't believe I've done the legals. Hello, you there?
Good morning, Ryan. Good morning, everyone. Are you covered in KFC this morning, or are you not?
No. You'll be pleased to know I was on the 6:40 train, I believe it was. Nice
Oh,
and
that's
early.
very reassuring.
Yeah, woke up in my own bed for a change. Lovely jubbly. Right, let me get the legals out of the way. Nothing discussed on this space session constitutes trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PRQ Global Limited, Traders PRQ or PRQ Suite, or its affiliates, which, as you know by now, includes the hosts, which, as you also know by now, is Mr. Michael Brown and myself, Mr. Ryan Basie. Take it away.
Indeed. Well, good morning, everybody. An interesting day yesterday, although I suppose price action was relatively contained. In terms of the equity space, the S&P 500 eked out a gain of about 0.1%, which did nonetheless take the index to a new record high, the 55th record high of the year so far. And of course, we still have about 3 full trading weeks to go, so plenty of scope for more record
Choo
highs
choo.
in the US equity space. Indeed. Markets elsewhere were pretty choppy and ultimately indecisive, and ending the day pretty much where they started, to be completely honest with you. The 10-year Treasury yield ticking higher by a couple of basis points to 4.23%. And it was a relatively indecisive day in the foreign exchange space as well, with the dollar trading in a relatively tight 106.10 to 106.50 range for most of the day. Pretty much all other G10s treading water as well. The biggest market move yesterday came in the crude space, with WTI rallying about 3% and trading north of $70 a barrel once more. This came amid headlines, according to Bloomberg and Reuters sources, that OPEC is likely to delay its proposed oil output hike for the entirety of the first quarter. Of course, OPEC Plus meeting on Thursday, the 5th of December. They were originally planning to increase output by 180,000 barrels per day from January. It looks like that may now be delayed for another 3 months. In terms of other headlines and catalysts, it was a relatively light day outside of Korea, where things were interesting, shall we say. At about 1:30 yesterday afternoon, the South Korean president decided to declare martial law, and then at about 7:30 yesterday evening, he decided to lift martial law after Parliament voted against it. Not entirely sure on the specifics of it, to be completely honest with you.
I don't think
Not
anyone
entirely
is.
no, I'm not sure he is. But it seems likely he's going to end up getting impeached and probably be out of a job relatively soon. One thing that is interesting about it, and I don't think is probably getting enough coverage, is that there has been a lot of speculation over the last 2 or 3 years that South Korea is going to be reclassified as a developed market, which by MSCI, which would of course result in huge institutional capital flows into the country, effectively forced buying of the country's stocks. I think it's safe to say that's probably off the cards for a little while after what happened yesterday. In terms of other bits and bobs, I mentioned the OPEC stories. Tom Talks Cars isn't here, but I'm going to mention Nvidia anyway, because their CFO yesterday was saying that they may use some of their growing cash pile in increased M&A activity. So that's perhaps one to watch. France is still in shambles. They are holding a no confidence vote in the government this afternoon, 4 o'clock Paris time, 3 o'clock here in London. That no confidence motion is, as we discussed yesterday, almost certain to pass and result in, well, probably the end of Michel Barnier as Prime
Bye
Minister,
bye
although
Barnier.
although I would say that there's no one really ready to replace him. But
Yeah, well,
I,
there is
I wonder,
that.
I wonder if the French version of the Daily Star have found a lettuce that they can put next to a picture of him and see which one lasts longer. I suppose a baguette over there, but never mind. In terms of economic data, just one release yesterday, and that was the latest JOLTS job openings data. Job openings at 7.74 million at the in October. That's up from just up from the prior 7.44 million, forgive me, and above expectations as well. Of course, as we mentioned yesterday, The JOLTS survey references the state of the labour market at the end of the month on the last working day, as opposed to the payrolls report, which references the labour market situation as it was in the week containing the 12th of the month. So JOLTS significantly less skewed by hurricanes and by the strikes at Boeing. We also saw the quits rate that rose to its highest level since May, I believe, at 2.2%. So perhaps a sign of a bit of improving sentiment around the labour market and workers having increased confidence in their ability to jump around and move jobs, which is a sign that things are ticking along okay. And that is pretty much it in terms of yesterday.
Well, thank you very much for that. Got a few headlines via our dear friend Zach. So I'll read some of those out now. Some news agencies reporting. Oh, hang on a second. Hang on a second. Has he sent me? No, it's fine. Some news agencies were reporting that Bank of Japan officials are leaning towards unchanged in December,
Oh.
absent of a. Gone.
Well, I was going to say these are the news agencies that we're not allowed to name, but that probably most people know who they are.
Yeah, those
Yes.
ones. Yeah, look, but yeah, this is obviously absent of the dollar yen rising to 160 amid political pressure. Chinese service activity expanded at a slower pace in November, the pressure by easing of new business growth, including in exports. That's according to Kaizen. China increased its support for the yuan by setting a significantly stronger than expected daily reference rate after the managed currency weakened to a 1 year low in the previous session. Sticking with China, on the nuclear front, China could approve 100 nuclear reactors over the coming decade, according to industry lobby group, as the nation turns itself into the world's biggest operator of atomic power and potentially a major exporter of the technology. A retreating euro will remain in the near term, tracked between political ructions building in France and Germany, to be fair, and expected new US tariffs early next year that are boosting the dollar's allure. That's according to the Reuters poll of market strategists. Did you take part in that poll?
No, I wasn't invited to take part in that,
Nah,
sadly.
well, calling for 110 in euro dollar over parity. That's probably why. They're probably listening to the show. Um,
Well, no, hang
the,
on, hang on, hang on, hang on, hang on. As,
uh,
as I clarified this previously, I'm not saying that the euro is going to hit 110 tomorrow. What I'm
no.
saying with that call is I think that the downside that we may see in the common currency won't be severe or sharp enough to take us to parity, as everyone seems to be getting all giddy and overexcitable
Yeah,
about.
well, yeah, so that's just a really long-winded version of think if saying you think 110 before it hits parity, and I think the
Yeah.
opposite. And there's a nice lunch on this, so get down. Right. But anyway, where was I? Russia, Ukraine, obviously, that's where I was. There are no grounds yet for negotiations on how to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. That's according to Russia this morning, in fact. Sticking with Russia Ukraine, Tucker Carlson has announced in a post late last night that he returned to Russia to interview its foreign minister, Lavrov, with the interview to be released soon. So he's getting in amongst it again.
Yeah.
And a couple
So
of
I'm washing my hair
gods.
that day. What's left of
I
it?
was going to say that won't take you very long. Um, in equities, Meta seeking as much as 4 gigawatts of new nuclear energy to run data centers and support its US electric grid, starting in the early 2030s. So you got time. Sticking with, I guess you could say this, sticking with nuclear to an extent, Qatar will invest £1 billion in climate technology in the UK, with Rolls-Royce set to benefit from the cash of this support in support of the energy transition. Now, I've not. It doesn't say specifically, but I wonder, and I'd imagine this is in some way related to the small medium reactors and all that kind of stuff. So one to watch. That technology is definitely finally getting some traction. Now, you didn't mention about ECB, did you? Did you mention about the ECB comments yesterday?
No.
Because we had a few by the looks of it. It seems like Nagel, Holzman, and Wren are all coming out and kind of basically saying yes, there will definitely be a quarter point cut in
Oh well,
December.
yeah. That's why I didn't mention it because I didn't say anything new. I mean,
No,
it's
no, no, no.
we've
But what?
got 27 people making policy, and every
But
day 27 of them say the same bloody thing.
what I think's kind of interesting is Nagel comments on Germany, where he basically admitted and came public and said they are fucked. Obviously he didn't quite use that language, but
He may as well have done.
He might as well have done so. And also, it's an excuse for me to read out a negative German headline. So I just wanted to get that one in there, really. But yeah, back
Fair
to you
enough.
in the studio.
Thank you, mate. Well, in terms of the day ahead, of course, we do have that French no confidence vote coming up this afternoon, which is something worth keeping on the radar, even though we do pretty much already know how that is going to go. In terms of
Goodbye.
other, indeed, in terms of other things to keep an eye on today, there are a few bits and bobs worth bearing in mind. It is Services PMI day, so we have the final figures out of the Eurozone at 9. That's expected unrevised at 49.4. The final data out of the UK, that's due in about an hour's time at 9:30. That's expected unrevised at 50. And then at 3 o'clock this afternoon, we have the ISM services gauge out of the United States. That's expected marginally softer than it was previously, expecting that at 55.7 in November, down for a prior 56. In terms of other data releases today, we have producer price inflation figures out of the Eurozone at 10. We have the monthly ADP employment report out of the States at 1:15. Just go to the pub, ignore it. It's not worth the paper that
Okay.
it's written on. Just for context, in October, the ADP employment figure came in at 233,000. The official BLS non-farm payrolls print came in at 12,000. So quite a wide spread there. Moving through the rest of the day, we also have factory orders out of the States. That's due at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The central bank speaking calendar, that's relatively busy. We hear from BOE Governor Bailey this morning. Into the afternoon, we hear from ECB President Lagarde, and then we also hear from Fed Chair Powell a little bit later on today. And also from the Fed, we have the release of the Beige Book that is coming up at 7 o'clock this evening. And that is pretty much your lot for this morning.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Brown. I will probably see you tomorrow, but listeners, you will hear from us tomorrow. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Feedback appreciated as long as it's good feedback. If you don't like it, you can poke it. And we will see you all tomorrow.
We will indeed. Bye bye.
Bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum.